Hi, Maria here. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about cherries. I'm so excited. Cherry fragrances are some of my favorite fragrances. I love cherry notes. I have tons of different fragrances with the cherry note that will kind of touch on every version of cherry. I tried to pick the ones that I think are noteworthy and are kind of the best of the best. So mixture as usual of Middle Eastern affordable designer niche. And before we get started, if you haven't subscribed, join the Weird Wonderful family by hitting that button. I would love for you to be part of the community, and let's get into this. So this may be a little bit of a long video because there's so many amazing cherry fragrances, and I wanted to share with you as many as I could that I thought were fantastic. So the first one I want to talk about, I think it's my most new one, and it is Close Up by Olfactive Studio. Now this is a delicious kind of boozy dark cherry that feels similar to Tom Ford's Lost Cherry, but it's kind of a little bit darker and a little bit more seductive, I think. I love this fragrance. It's a little bit more woody too, so I get quite a lot of what feels like a cedary feel. I just looked at the notes and it does have cedar. It's got spices, it's got coffee in it, which helps add to that darkness. It doesn't smell overly boozy. And then there's white tobacco, which to me doesn't come across uber tobacco-esque. However, mixed with the spices and coffee, it smells kind of like a cherry tobacco. So I love this one. It's dark, it's seductive, it's sensual, it's definitely unisex, maybe unisex leaning masculine. However, I love this fragrance. Some people find it slightly animalic, so I will say that, but I think it's gorgeous. It lasts forever on the skin. And I would say that as far as a cherry goes, you do get that cherry tobacco feel, but it feels a little bit dry to me somehow. So I'll say that, love this fragrance. I'm going to mention this one. It should have been the first one as a runner up because it actually doesn't have any cherry in it, but whenever I smell it, I think cherry, and that is Sodor Mandor. So this is one I don't talk about very much. It's got some leather in there, so it's really like, it's dark, it's mysterious, it's got some rum, tonka, vanilla. There's caramel in here, but I think it's the heliotrope. There's heliotrope and almond in here, and it gives me a cherry-esque vibe. So whenever I smell this, like as soon as I smelt it, I thought to myself, I think this must have cherry in it. But it's actually the almond. So I really love this one. It's amazing. It gives me a cherry vibe. It would be amazing paired with cherry, so that's something to consider. It's definitely leaning masculine in my opinion because of the leather, but I wanted to mention it because I always think of cherry whenever I smell this. Venom of Love by Navitus Parfums. Now this was a fragrance that was released a couple years ago with Paulina Shar, and it's absolutely delicious. So this has sour cherry and cherry. There's a liquor in here. There's almond. I get all of that. There's some chocolate, rose, vanilla whipped cream. So this is almost like a gourmand version of a lost cherry. I think this is intoxicating. The chocolate in here is amazing. The booziness is fantastic. I really pick up on that almond and that gourmand nature. So I think that this one is fantastic. And even though I get a good dose of chocolate, it doesn't feel overbearing or too sickly. It's just gorgeous, uber sexy, and really enjoyable to wear. It lasts a good 7-8 hours, I would say, on the skin. So really, really enjoy this one. I kind of cherish my little sample. So love this cherry fragrance. Have you smelled this one? If you haven't, you should give it a go. I just have a sample of this one, but Keltat Night by Atar Collection is absolutely delicious. So this has cherry, it's got vanilla, there's patchouli, red apple, and white musk. So I definitely get that cinnamon and Keltat Nights along with the patchouli and then of course the cherry. So it's a little bit more dark, it's a little bit more dry feeling. The cherry doesn't come across boozy, but it's still a really opulent fragrance. I think about a fragrance like this for like Christmas Eve or some evening event, but you want a little bit of naughtiness in there. Keltat Night would be great. As far as a Tom Ford inspired version, Julianas Perfume has sponsored this video. There's two that I want to mention from them that are excellent cherry fragrances. The first is actually inspired by Tom Ford, and it is Mon Chéri. So this has the black cherry, it's got the bitter almond, and I definitely get that. I get that Tom Ford feel, although I feel like it's not quite as boozy and has a little bit more almond than the Tom Ford Lost Cherry. But if you want something that has a little bit of that boozy cherry feel with a good dose of almond, the Mon Chéri is amazing. The next one from Julianas Perfumes that is kind of their twist on the Tom Ford Lost Cherry inspired is Mon Chéri's Secret. This has that boozy sour cherry feel, but it's a little brighter, a little bit more playful. Mon Chéri's Secret, it has a little bit of greenness to it. It's got some lychee, raspberry, and some exotic fruits in there. So the cherry is definitely there. You get that kind of sexy Tom Ford Lost Cherry DNA, but then with some brightness with the raspberry and the exotic fruits, the lychee, a little bit of tartness. This one's a bit more sparkling. And I got a few of my fragrance friends to try this one, and Danny from Deep Green Beauty really enjoyed this one. So I think this was actually one of her favorite ones that she tried. So it's really fun, lasts a really decent amount of time on the skin, projects nicely. And to me, it would be almost like a daytime version of a Lost Cherry inspired DNA, simply because it's got a little bit of brighter fruits, a little bit more tart, but you still have that a little bit of a darkness underneath that's super sexy, but a little bit more playful. So this one's really fun. Next fragrance is by Melik Perfumes and is very cherry rose chocolate patchouli. And that's exactly what you're getting in this fragrance. It opens with black cherry and a lychee accord. I don't really notice the lychee accord, but I get the cherry, but it doesn't smell uber, like there's no booziness in this. It just smells like a dark, rich, fresh cherry. In the middle, it has rose, and then the base has chocolate and patchouli. And the patchouli is more of that chocolatey patchouli. So sometimes chocolatey can smell uber spicy. Sometimes it can smell a little bit dirty or earthy. Other times it can smell a little bit chocolatey. And that's what I find with this one. So it's a little bit spicy. I get that chocolate feel along with the rose and the cherry. In the opening of the fragrance, it actually smells fairly bright. Maybe it's the lychee, but it feels a little bit more bright, a little bit more happy with that rose cherry combination. But as this dries down on the skin, it gets a little bit more spicy, a little bit more dark feeling with that chocolate and that patchouli coming out. But it's like that chocolate and patchouli is hidden a little bit until about 3 hours in, and then it starts to come out and gets a little more chocolatey feeling. So I really enjoy this fragrance. It's a fun fragrance to wear if you're going from like shopping or whatever and then going into the evening. This is a great fragrance, and the longevity is just stellar, like 10 to 12 hours for sure for this one. And I noticed on Melik's website, he actually has 10 mils now for about $65. So if you're wanting to try them out, I think he's got like samples that you can get, but you can also go for a 10 ml if you don't want to spring for the whole bottle. Guerlain has a whole entire series of fragrances with cherry in it called La Petite Robe Noire. Now, La Petite Robe Noire, it is a little bit more of a brighter cherry. It smells a little bit more synthetic in the cherry department. Usually has some rose. There's a little bit of licorice, I believe, in there. I think there's tea in it. I like La Petite Robe Noire, but I prefer Black Perfecto, which is La Petite Robe Noire Black Perfecto. This one has a little bit more leather, but not too much. This has tea. It's got almond, cherry, rose, licorice. There's tonka, patchouli, and musk in this. I get a tiny hint of the leather. Lots of people go, oh, this is like a little black jacket. And I guess I get that, but I've got other fragrances like Mandorle that has way more leather. Cherry Punk has more leather. So this one feels way less leathery to me. And the cherry is a lot more bright. But I really enjoy this, especially with the tea. I would wear Black Perfecto during the day as opposed to an evening fragrance. but it's a really enjoyable fragrance to wear. I still kind of want La Petite Robe Noire, but I have La Petite Robe Noire Intense, which is more blueberry. I've got Hippie Chic, which has some raspberry in it. So I'm not sure how much I need another La Petite Robe Noire, but I kind of really enjoy them. You should definitely check them out. Usually you can find them in a department store, at least a few of the versions in the department stores, and they're definitely worth a sniff for sure. Another fantastic cherry fragrance is Rouge Smoking by BDK. Now the cherry in this one is definitely, again, a little bit more brighter, almost a little bit more fresh for me. It's still dark, it's still a little bit sexy. With a name like Rouge Smoking, you know that's kind of what you're getting. It has some vanilla. According to the Fragrantica, it's black vanilla. There's heliotrope, orange blossom. This has tonka in it. There's some cashmere wood. There's some violet in here. I find that this is really, like, there's a little bit of powder to this one. This one is super sexy, and it border on smells a little bit cherry cola vibe, which I am all over. Like, I really love that cherry cola vibe. So really, really enjoy this. I love that cola-esque feel. I don't know where it's coming from, but I find this to be extremely sexy. It's different than all those dark, boozy cherries. This one is a little bit more sensual, a little bit more understated, but uber sexy. Another one of my favorite cherries is by Simone Andreoli, and it is called Vice Bomb. I know that Val has a Dua version of Vice Bomb, which I think is fantastic as well. But this is so delicious, decadent, dark, sensual. The cherry in this smells really dark, but slightly tart. There's caramel in here along with some red fruits, vanilla, sugar, tonka, amber, a little bit of woodiness. There's apparently ylang ylang in here. I don't really get this. This feels fully gourmand to me. It smells almost like a cherry compote with quite a healthy dose of sugar in it. I think that this one would be amazing paired with something like Bianco Latte or Eclair. So it would smell like ice cream with cherry, like with cherry compote or some sort of cherry syrup on it. I love this one. I just think it's luscious smelling. Another fragrance that I don't own, actually a lot of these cherry fragrances I actually don't own, but I love them. So that's the thing. There's lots of fragrances that have cherry in them, but these ones are ones that are just kind of, they've caught my attention in particular. And French Avenue has one called Arida. I hear that it's supposed to be like, I believe, electric cherry from Tom Ford. It has cherry, there's ginger, jasmine, musk, amber, and pink pepper in it. I think because of the color of the bottle, I always think that it's rosy. The cherry in this is definitely brighter, smells almost a little bit more like a maraschino cherry. This one's a little bit sparkling. I see wearing this one in the spring and the summer. It's definitely one I want to get. Really, really enjoy it. Decent longevity, like it's moderate longevity, decent projection. So this one's a really solid, affordable one. If you want a brighter cherry that's more daytime appropriate, this one I think would work well. I actually found this one quite classy. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Speaking of classy, the classiest of all cherries is Habibi by Bozo. This one, I could have included this in my workplace fragrance review. I just didn't want to because I talk about it quite often. But I find this to be such a phenomenally classy, put together, sophisticated fragrance. It feels understated and very feminine. It has this beautiful green note on the opening that feels so refreshing. Then it has some cherry, almond, and red currant leaf. Again, adding to that greenness. Definitely get the almond in here as well as that cherry. The cherry is brighter, a little bit more airy feeling, along with some musk and sandalwood. Don't get any sandalwood. I get a little bit of that muskiness. This lasts all day on the skin. I think it is an excellent fragrance, one of the best fragrances that I have in my collection, honestly. I think that it's worth the money, and it's definitely, if you want something that's classy, luxe, sophisticated, signature scent worthy, this would be it. Another cherry fragrance that I think is really unique is by Untamed Perfumes, and it's called Running with the Wolves. Now the cherry in this is a black cherry note, but to me, it comes across actually a little bit lighter. This is super animalic. So it's got Szechuan pepper, there's red apple, tuberose, almond, animalic notes, blonde woods, leather, and agar wood. So it's got a lot of woodiness. There's that leather. It's the whole idea is just this fresh ingenue. Like I think of Little Red Riding Hood, innocence running with the wolves. So so I find this one to be so sexy. Like it's sexy, it's different. It's definitely a floral tuberose, so no bubble gum happening in this one. It's grown woman or man. A guy could wear this for sure. Guy could wear the majority of the fragrances I'm talking about. This is uber sexy. It's different. And I didn't like this one at first. Like, it was okay. And it's so funny because when I first smelt it, I didn't pick up on the cherry. And my sister, I sprayed it on the card, didn't tell her what was in it. And she went, oh, cherry. So she picked up on the cherry right away. For me, it took me about 2 years. And all of a sudden, like I hadn't worn it in a long time. And then this fall, I put it on and I'm like, I'm in love with this. Like I'm totally in love with this. I love the cherry in it. I love the tuberose in it. I love the animalic aspect of this one. I just think it's an amazing fragrance and very, very unique. So that you get the cherry in there. It stays, I'd say, the majority of the time of the fragrance, but there's a lot of kind of different stuff going on there that makes this really unique. I would say this is uber niche-y, and so you have to be able to get down with a little bit of animalics with your florals. It's absolutely intoxicating to me and very addictive in my opinion. Yeah, it's really different. This is for sure polarizing. It's not going to be for everyone. I think that this is an amazingly sexy cherry fragrance that would smell great on a guy, but maybe some people would find it too feminine. I think it's unisex leaning slightly masculine because of that animalic aspect. I looked on Fragrantica and it was unisex leaning female, no masculine at all, but man, I would love this on a guy. Woo! So this next one is kind of a sweet nothing. It's uber synthetic, but I love it. So I have to talk about it, and it's Sweet by Lolita Lempicka. I think that this is pretty affordable. It's synthetic cherry all the way. It smells like powdered cherry powder. Like synthetic sweet, like very, very sugary sweet synthetic cherry flavored powder, like the Lick-A-Maid Lick-A-Sticks, but I don't think that's what they were called. I always call them that. The brand is called Lick-A-Maid, and I always as a kid called it Lick-A-Maid, and it's fun dip candy. So I always called it Lick-A-Maid Lick-A-Stick. It just sounds so terrible, but it had the stick and you stuck the stick in the powder and then you'd suck it. It had a cherry powder, and to me, this reminds me of it. It's super sweet, super thin, synthetic, doesn't last long on the skin, but it's one of those guilty pleasures where it's kind of a dumb, like it doesn't last long. Like it's just like, why do I like this? But I do. It's cheap. Like it doesn't smell sophisticated. It just smells like delicious fake cherry powder, sweet icing sugar all over my body. And so I love wearing this one to bed in the summer and spring when it's kind of hot, and I put it on my skin, and then when I wake up in the morning, my skin smells a little bit like icing sugar, and I love it. So this, I love this. I can't get rid of it. I just love it. Tell me if you love it too. Next one that I think is so excellent is LOVEFEST Burning Cherry. Amber Invite Only has a little bit of cherry, but LOVEFEST Burning Cherry has a good dose of cherry in it, along with some Palo Santo. It has a ton of notes, but definitely the cherry stands out. There's a sweetness in there. There's some floral. I get more rose than anything. Lots of woodiness, and it smells almost like a burning fire. To me, it reminds me of something like By the Fireplace by Maison Margiela, and Tom Ford Lost Cherry. If you kind of superimposed those onto one another, took down the booziness and amped up a little bit of that praline, you'd kind of have it, and not quite as burning feeling, but you still get that. Like there's Gaiac wood in here, there's Gaiac wood and By the Fireplace, but with that delicious, luscious, amazing cherry that's a little bit boozy, a little bit dark and sexy. Fantastic fragrance. The longevity, I thought the longevity wasn't great, but honestly, I think with her fragrances, a lot of times the longevity improves. So the longevity is moderate to a little bit better than moderate for sure. I think it's a really solid release and it smells amazing. I have Ophidian Black Cherry, and that is supposedly supposed to be a LOVEFEST Burning Cherry inspired fragrance. It has really similar notes. This one, however, doesn't say it has cherry, but I smell cherry. It says it has raspberry. I don't get any raspberry. I do get a bright, delicious, mouth-watering cherry. I do get that woodiness mixed in. I find this one is super sexy again. I guess maybe they do smell a little bit similar, but I don't find that this one is quite as burning. It's got that woody feel, but I feel like LOVEFEST Burning Cherry has a little bit more vanilla-y feel, even though it doesn't have vanilla. Yeah, somehow I think it feels a little bit different than this one. I'd have to smell them side by side, but this one is really good, really intoxicating. The longevity on this, probably about 6 hours. Projection is really good. So this is an excellent, affordable one that is maybe a little bit similar. Honestly, it's been so long since I've smelt LOVEFEST Burning Cherry. I did a review on it a long time ago. This still has that woody cherry vibe that I think is excellent. It holds its own with fragrances like Close Up by Olfactive Studios or the Tom Ford DNA. So you get a little bit of that. I think that if I were to look at fragrances that have kind of that dark, mysterious, boozy-esque, cherry, woody, dark feel, I think honestly my favorite is Venom of Love by Navitus Parfums. It's so gorgeous. I just really love that chocolate vibe being in there because I love cherry and chocolate together. So as far as all those dark, mysterious, sexy cherries, Venom of Love, I think, would be my first pick. And as far as more of that classy daytime cherry, Habibi, by far, that's one of my favorites. That is it. There are so many other cherry fragrances out there. What are a couple of your favorite? If not from this list, please leave them in the comments. Everybody is always interested in cherry fragrances. Personally, I love mixing cherry fragrances with chocolate fragrances or cherry fragrances with vanilla fragrances. I totally am gonna mix. I just did a video talking about my tray. I'm totally mixing cherry punk with eclair. I can't wait to try that. So I'll get back to you on that. But anyway, these are the amazing cherry fragrances that to me are major standouts. Probably the most sexy, kind of mass appealing one that's like sexy and sensual would be Rouge Smoking by BDK. Like that one I have to add to my collection. I just love it. So what about you? What's your favorite cherry? And if there's ones that I haven't mentioned that you want to share with the group, please do. Other than that, have an amazing week and we'll talk to you soon.